Hello everyone and welcome back to another trailer analysis video for Echoes of Wisdom. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Into the Still World trailer and discussing some of the notable things that were shown off in this trailer and a lot of the new gameplay elements and what the world of Echoes of Wisdom is going to look at. So without further ado, let's take a look. So this trailer is going to open up with a shot of Hyrule Castle being transported to the Still World, the ulterior world to Hyrule in this iteration of Zelda. So we have all these mysterious rifts popping up across Hyrule, and we see here the King of Hyrule in this game, being lost to this world as well, pushing Zelda out of the way, being a good father this time around, unlike you, King Rome. So we see Zelda here, looking at her father being transported alongside his advisors. And a large part of this trailer specifically is going into these rifts and discussing what they are. We see all these rifts popping up across Hyrule in every region, and these are rifts into the Still World. And Zelda herself is able to enter the Still World to investigate the issues here, thanks to Tri opening up a portal into the Still World. Now, the Still World is very interesting in that it is taking all of these chunks from Hyrule and putting them into this new area. But before we get into that, let's take a look at this new key art here, which is extremely exciting because not only does it just have like a really cool design, but it shows us that Lionels are making a return in this game. Here we see a Lionel that looks like the same model and design that was used in Breath of the Wild. This is obviously one of the Shadow Still World versions, which seems to indicate that we'll probably have some in the overworld as well. But I think it's just a really cool note to point out that we're seeing more of that Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom influence in this game still, even in the enemies. I know Lionels are a classic enemy, but this is using the modern design, and I think utilizing one of the more recognizable enemies from modern Zelda into this is a really good idea, because that's another way of bridging the gap between the old and the new. And not only just because of that, but having a more challenging enemy in this game is going to make it fun and hopefully a bit more challenging. But time will tell. We will have to see. But very exciting to see that Lionels are making a return in here. Additionally, in this art, we see that the entirety of Hyrule Castle, it looks like, has been transported into the Still World. Large sections of Hyrule have been transported into the Still World, and it's going to make for traversing this area very interesting. Here we get a shot of the Still World and just how these sections of land are going to work in here. Additionally, we can see that not everything is going to be upright in this world. Sections of land and items that are transported into the Still World are tilted onto their axis, which is going to make traversing this area a bit more interesting and open-ended for the player to decide how they want to go about traveling this world with echoes and the bindability. And it's just another aspect of the open gameplay design of exploration in this game for you to traverse this area. So that's going to be very interesting to see how everyone goes about doing this. Here we see a Hylian that's been transported into the Still World, and as Tri is explaining here, when people get pulled into the rifts, they get petrified and they can't move anymore, which is an interesting note because it seems to indicate that Zelda has some kind of protection against this, be it through Tri or the Triforce itself. We don't know for sure, but there is some aspect of the Still World that is not affecting Zelda specifically, but for everyone that's falling through these rifts, they are turning into a petrified state. And as Tri says here as well, if they stay this way, they will eventually fade away. So it seems like a large part of this game is going to revolve around saving the inhabitants of Hyrule that have fallen into the Still World and making sure that they don't fade away from existence. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of side quests that are going to be tailored around this. Or perhaps whenever you go to a section of the world that is dominated by these rifts, once you solve the issues there, and I'm assuming close these rifts into the Still World, maybe these inhabitants are going to come out of it and not be petrified anymore. But this seems like it's going to be a very integral part of this game. Here we see Zelda traversing across one of these tilted pieces of land. We can see her jumping on the trees, which again indicates just the level of traversal in this is going to be different from what we see in the overworld, and you'll have to think a little bit differently in terms of how to traverse this new area. Again, we see this section here where she's using the echoes to traverse this. This is something we've seen in previous trailers as well, but this is just going to show a further step in how echoes are going to be super, super important in exploration. Additionally, I think this is a new echo here, this one that looks like a pumpkin. I don't think we've seen this one before. I'm assuming this is a pumpkin. It kind of has the look about it, but not too sure. Interesting to see what that might do, but we'll have to, I'm assuming, check on it ourselves. Hey, if you like this kind of content and would like to support the channel further, consider becoming a channel member. Channel members will have access to emotes to use during live streams and in the comments, as well as specialized badges to indicate how long you've been a member for. All members will have their names shouted out in every single video, and if you join the Townsend's Tavern Discord, you'll have a specialized role dedicated just for you. Now, let's get back to the video. Here we get a look into dungeons. This is the Southern Ruins dungeon, which is going to be the dungeon that we see that golem-like enemy pop up into. You know, of note, they made a point to say that dungeons are going to be pretty big and substantial, and it seems to look that way just off of what we've seen in this trailer. But here we can see Zelda attacking some dark nuts, which is, you know, very fun and exciting, and solving some puzzles, using a tree on fire to light a torch down here, which, you know, just goes to show more of those use of the echoes. But here we get a shot at this golem enemy and a few different ways that we can go about attacking it. So if we see here, Zelda is summoning these ropes to attack the golem for her, but additionally, you can fight alongside your echoes as well. Or just let your echoes do all the work and just take a quick nap, you know, because, you know, why should you break a sweat? But yeah, here we have another shot of the different regions of Hyrule being affected. We saw there before that the Gerudo Desert had sections taken out of it. This is Jabul Waters. And so it's just showing that the environments are going to vary depending upon what section of the still world that you're in, because different parts of Hyrule are being pulled into here. So it seems like every notable section of Hyrule is going to have a part in the still world. This here is very exciting for me because, you know, traditional dungeons being back in Zelda and being back in a big way is very, very exciting, but having traditional puzzles is extremely exciting. So we can see here that Zelda is, you know, messing around with this puzzle mechanic and is trying to get to a giant chest, which very well likely could have a boss key or a dungeon item or something substantial. You don't have a chest that big without it being important. But this is very exciting that we are getting those traditional puzzle elements back in a Zelda game. And speaking of traditional elements, we have the moving tiles making a return, which is, if you've played Zelda any iteration in the past, you have very likely seen those before. Here we just get a little bit of a look at Zelda traversing these different areas with the echoes again. But this is a section that very well looks like it is part of a water temple. And I've seen a few people point this section out here. We have these square nodules on this, this carving upon the wall. And a lot of people seem to think that this could be a hint that the terminals mechanic from Tears of the Kingdom is going to be making a return in Echoes of Wisdom. Now, I've seen a few people also say that that might not necessarily be the case, but this is very well likely going to have some kind of tie-in with puzzle mechanics or just solving some aspect of this dungeon. And this looks like it could be a door maybe, or, you know, just something that's going to move out of the way. So the terminal aspect of it very well could be making a return here, but we will have to see. Additionally, there's this jellyfish type echo that we can see up here. I'm not sure if this enemy has a proper name. I can't think right offhand what it would be in terms of previous Zelda enemies. But the use of this is going to be very interesting. I'm not sure what it might be. And here we have the Sword Fighter form, which is a huge, huge part of this game. I know for a lot of people, the gameplay and combat aspect was a point of contention, and a lot of people were really worried about if the summoning of echoes was going to be interesting enough to keep this game enjoyable. But this is the solution to that problem. We have Sword Fighter form Zelda. Here we see Zelda discovering Link's sword, as it's called in this game, a mysterious sword. So I'm sure there's probably going to be some kind of connection with this sword or some deeper lore implications or something with this sword, because you don't just call it a mysterious sword. There's got to be something there. So I'm sure we're going to be trying to figure out what that's about. But when Zelda finds the sword, it allows her to turn into Sword Fighter Zelda, where she looks like Link. So we finally, the Zelda team has finally circled back around to Zelda being the one in green. It's really been self-fulfilling prophecy this whole time. But I love Sword Fighter Zelda. Seeing her with the sword and shield is really cute. And the fact she's wearing Link's tunic is just awesome. So, big fan of that. But we can see here that she's able to utilize the sword and shield and use traditional combat, which is going to be a huge aspect of this game. Because I know for a lot of people, they wanted this in the game for sure. Some people seem to think that we were going to go back and forth between Link and Zelda to have this type of gameplay, but here we have the answer to that, and it's that Zelda is going to be utilizing Sword Fighter mode. Which, if we take a look here, we can see that there is a magic meter for Sword Fighter mode, and it has this level icon next to it, which indicates that we're going to be able to increase our level for this and extend the duration of Sword Fighter mode. How high that level is, I'm not too sure, and I think that'll be the interesting thing about this specifically, is because how much do they want us to use this ability? Obviously, I'm assuming, towards later points in the game, once you've increased your level, you'll be able to use it at longer, durations, and that'll open up more gameplay opportunities for you, or it might have, there might be a need for you to have a higher sword fighter level in later stages into the game. But very interesting to see how that's going to be balanced and how they intend us to use sword fighter mode. But once it runs out, just like a magic meter, you're no longer able to use it. But it looks like we're able to use it at will, and utilize however much energy we have at the moment. So there is floating sword energy in this game that refills the gauge. I'm sure there's going to be some kind of like story implications to this as to why we're able to, use these items and have them refill our gauge. But interesting nonetheless. All right, next up we have a look at the inhabitants of Hyrule, and here we have Dompe, who is making a return, and he is no longer a gravekeeper in this one. This time he's some kind of, mechanic engineer who was creating automatons, which are more traditional items, believe it or not. These are like single-use items that you will use, and here we can see this Tektite item that just turns into a bomb and blows them up. We have this choo-choo jelly one here that is using music to attack a Wolfos, which is very interesting. So a lot of different gameplay elements here with these automatons and what they're able to do. They do break after a few, after a little bit of usage. So that's going to be interesting to, see how each individual type of automaton could be used depending upon your specific circumstance. This next section, we see a rundown of some of the inhabitants of Hyrule. Here we have a man who is singing. I'm sure these are going to be guys that have mini games or some kind of side quest tied to them. We have this interesting fellow here that has some sort of, like dojo looking area. This seems to be like maybe akin to the sword fighter or the sword, the swordsman in Wind Waker, who trains Link on how to use the sword. So it gives off similar vibes, at least to me. But here we can see him saying, "Oh, you're a new recruit." And then we have this gentleman here who is coming down from a paraglider or sail, and with a stamp icon that he's landing on. So a lot of different interesting characters showing up in this Hyrule, as well as Urbosa Light. And, we have our Gerudo leader here, as well as some prominent Goron figure here who likes fireworks, and the Returner Cats, and the Great Fairy. Very interesting. So a lot of cool things shown off in this trailer. We see the, these shadowy figures coming out of the rifts and attacking Zelda. It seems like they are, they're going to start off as just an ambiguous blob coming out of them. And then once you are struck by this blob, they will then turn into various enemies that can affect or attack you. As we see here, there was, Dark Nuts, Moblins, Keese. So depending upon the area, we very well might see different specific enemies to those locations. This is an interesting thing here. This is like back in the day when you had the Game Shark on your Nintendo DS, and you had the ability to just clip through the walls and everything in every game that you played. Zelda is just leaping across the tops of these trees, which is super cool. So I guess it just means that any and all places are traversable in this game. So really cool. And there seems to be this very well could be those southern ruins, or maybe just an additional dungeon as well here on the right. But we get another shot of Zelda being affected by the heat and the cold. So again, those temperature, and we can see that, this outer rim of the screen here is affected with like a frost type effect, which is very similar to what we saw like in Breath of the Wild with Zelda getting cold and affected by the temperatures. So more of those modern elements at play here. Being able to swim, huge cool thing. More traversal in the still world. And Zelda hiding in a barrel, which is, very much akin to Wind Waker. Here we get another shot at another one of those singing frogs. This one is a different color and in a different location. So I would think I was right before in the previous video where I was talking about how these guys are going to be maybe akin to the Fabulous Five frog tenors. Or have some kind of music quest tied to these frogs specifically, but there's confirmation of more than one frog. Very, very cool. Here's Zelda getting a fairy. Mini games, a time trial with the horse, and the big one. This is so monumental for this game. It opens up a plethora of questions about lore and implications, but it very well looks like Volvagia is making a return in this game. Very well likely just a new iteration of this enemy. But the fact that we have a returning boss from previous Zeldas just means that we might have more. And that's super exciting. And the design of this enemy just looks so cool. And very, very excited to see what that means for the rest of the game. But oh my god, the fact that we have a staple, iconic Zelda enemy making a return in this game. So cool. So cool. And there we have it. That is Echoes of Wisdom Into the Still World trailer. A lot of really cool things shown off in this trailer specifically. And it just means that we are getting more excited about the aspect of this game. And I, for one, am just so excited. And I can't wait for this game to come out. Let me know what you liked about this trailer down in the comments below. There's a ton of stuff in this trailer that I think is super unique and interesting that is worth discussing. So let me know what your takeaways from this trailer are. Really quick shout out to the members that have joined. If you want to become a member, links are down in the description, as well as the join button next to the channel name. Consider becoming a member and you could see your name pop up here as well. Thank you guys so much for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already. Like the video if you liked it. That's going to do it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.